All right, what's up, everybody? Got another video that I was working on last couple days here. This is a first for me. I'm actually building something. Well, I mean, I build stuff all the time, but this is the first time of me actually trying to make a video of me building something. And what I'm making is just a little, I guess, just a little decoration, maybe like a desk ornament. But the real point of this was to make an actual attempt at making a video of something. And so I had a couple of plates lying around in my garage. One of the same ones that actually was well known for those first couple videos. You can actually see that in the corner of the little work table here. So I just thought up a quick design on something, marked it up, started cutting it up, and I started realizing pretty quickly that it's one thing to try to just build something without any concern about anything besides getting it done, but actually trying to make a video about it, it kind of just adds that additional layer of concern. I'm no longer just trying to make what I'm making. I'm also trying to figure out where to put the camera, how to get the camera positioned to get the best shot, and then of course working around the camera while I'm doing it. But what really struck me about this whole experience was actually figuring out how easy it really was. It wasn't really that much of a hardship trying to work around it. Although, getting the camera on the tripod and then trying to weld while not getting in the way of the camera, or trying to get my hands around the camera and all that stuff, that did make it a little bit more awkward. But all in all, what I learned from this was that this is totally something I can do. And going forward, when I start making some more advanced stuff or some more interesting stuff, I'll be able to move with confidence while I'm doing that. So as you can see here, I took a couple plates, I cut 4 small pieces out, and then I cut 1 square piece out, 4 inches by 4 inches. And now what I'm doing here is I'm taking those 4 small pieces that I made, and I'm just going to round off those edges. I'm going to start by cutting them, just cutting a little triangle off it, and then I'm going to come in later with the grinding disc, and I'm going to do what I can to kind of smooth it out and make it round. I don't know if you noticed a minute ago, I actually used I think it was a nickel I used as my stencil for making the round edge there. So here I am with the grinding disc, just kind of trying to knock it down a little bit. I'm going to come in later and smooth everything out with a flat disc and make everything look a little bit better, but this will serve me well for now. Got them all done here. So now I'm going to do the first step, which is to just knock off that coating that's on the end, the outer part of the plate. It's like a protective coating. I don't know if it's oil or if it's an actual, lacquer or something, but whatever it is, you can't really weld it. It makes a mess when you try to weld it. It burns. And so if I try to just come in with a flat disc and just smooth it all out, it's actually going to take forever. But if I just kind of get a little bit of that bare metal exposed, it's going to make it go so fast later whenever I go use a flat disc, which you'll see in a moment here. Now I'll say this, I am a Milwaukee man. I like Milwaukee for every single tool. If they got it, I'm getting it. But there is one exception for me, and that is the grinder. DeWalt makes a fine grinder, and that's the one I probably will be using for the entirety of my career. I sure do love them. They just kind of operate kind of smooth, and I like the mechanism to trigger it. They're light enough so that they're easy to work with, and they're heavy enough to, give you that little bit of extra stability when you're working. I remember whenever I used the Milwaukee grinders, I don't know what it was, but my my forearms would get sore from it. I think it's because the trigger mechanism was so much longer. So finish up all those small parts. Now I'm working on the base now, or I guess you could call it a base plate. And yeah, it looks a little bit ugly right now with what I'm doing, but I'm going to come in later in a second and I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it a little bit prettier. You'll see that right now. That was my flap disc. Oh yeah. Now we're starting to look professional. Just a little bit. I used to be a fabricator, one of my old jobs, but that was actually one of the first welding jobs I ever had. And so this stuff, it's kind of like working on a little project like this really brought me back to the old days. you know, using the clamps, working them with plates, smoothing everything out. It was honestly kind of fun in its own way. It's fun to do things that are a little bit different than what you've been doing, you know, even if it's something that is a little bit simpler and a little bit more straightforward. Of course, that being said, there are not too many things more straightforward than welding pipe, but it is more challenging. Look at that thing. Oh yeah, it's starting to look real pretty. Pretty to me, I suppose. But I think you guys are gonna like what I ended up with in the end. And those curved edges I traced out with those coins actually turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So it looks like I'm about to wrap up that last piece there. But there is one more thing I got to do before I continue, which is but there's one more. I'm going to have to make a bevel on the inner part of all of them. You'll see why in a minute, but essentially I need all four inside parts to connect in the middle. And when they're all square cut like that, they're obviously, you know, there's going to be a void in the center when they do. So the way I'm going to get around that is I'm going to make a bevel on the intersection of each of them. That way they can all touch in the very middle. And I'm just going to weld over it later. You see, that's what I'm doing here. For anyone who doesn't know, a bevel is when you cut away an angle of the edge to make kind of like a point. Sometimes we call them a knife edge. And that's what I'm doing here. You know, I think one of the next things I'm going to, you know, get in the work, so to speak, is making myself a workbench, a real one. Because this thing here, I mean, it's doing just fine for me right now. It was just really what it was something to get me started, this little welding table I got. But I really need like a proper welding table. Something a little bit higher up because I'm pretty tall. And then also something a little bit heavier, more space. So here you can see what I'm working on really start to take shape. Now, it doesn't really serve any purpose. It's nothing... It's just pointless. You know, I'm just spinning my wheels right now by making this thing. But I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of pretty. You'll see when it's done. And I'm probably just going to let it sit on my desk. My desk that's inside my house. Oh, yeah, and other news for me. That job I got, it's starting, you know, like I was saying earlier, it's starting up pretty soon here. And I just started looking at apartments. And it's kind of a weird thought to me to be owning a house in one state and then living in an apartment in another state. But I guess it's a natural progression of one's career. And, it feels good to be in a position to be able to afford to do something like that. So now is the other part, which is the welding. And I've been really experimenting with different ways of trying to film it. And what you're looking at right now is I went and got some filters for my GoPro. And I'm using the highest rated filter right now, which is an ND32. And I was really hoping that darkest filter was going to be enough to actually see the puddle. But as you can see here, it didn't really work. So then what I did was I went into the settings and I made everything a lot darker here. And this is with the filter, with the darker settings, and some other stuff that honestly I have no idea what it was, but I just put them down on the minimum. And it does look kind of cool, honestly, but it doesn't actually show much of the welding. And so I'm still going to, keep messing around, keep trying to get better. Later on, you'll see some shots that I got using my welding lens taped to my camera like I did in the previous video, where you can actually see what I'm doing a little bit. And the reason why those ones actually turned out a little bit better is because I actually changed the settings on the camera, made the camera settings darker, and then also taped the welding lens on top of it. And just seeing like those little incremental bits of progress and being able to film the welding, it feels pretty good. And I'm starting to get pretty confident that, pretty soon here I'm going to be just making arc shots that look good. This will be the final clip that I have where I'm not using the welding lens, so just bear with me. Also, I decided not to film the entire welding, because I think that you, the viewer, you probably just want to see a couple shots of what I'm welding on and kind of get the gist of what's going on. And then you want to see the finished product, which is what I did do for y'all. So here we go. This is the shot of me welding with the welding lens and the darker settings on the camera. And as you can see here, you can actually see what I'm doing a little bit. You see that puddle moving around. You You see that metal melting. The only downside is you can't see anything else. It's just total, utter blackness, except for the one little part of me welding. Man, it would be so cool to be able to have you guys see, more in the shot than just the puddle, but also at the same time being able to see the puddle itself too. When I feel like when I'm welding and you guys can't see what I'm doing, it probably looks like I'm barely even moving at all. But as you can see here, I'm actually weaving it. I'm going up and down with it. I'm dragging that puddle to the top, and then I'm pulling it down. I'm letting gravity help me when I pull it down there. That's kind of how it goes when you're welding. You gotta pay. You gotta give the top part of the weld a little bit more attention. Try to get it to fuse properly, because whenever you're done and you pull it down, that gravity is going to really help you, and it's really just going to pull it all down. Here, the reason why this one looks different is because I messed with the settings again. This one I'm letting in a little bit more light. You can still kind of see what I'm doing a little bit here, but it's still kind of hard to see. I got to find a happy medium between having a small enough amount of light getting in to where you can see what I'm doing, but a large enough amount of light in to, kind of set the scene a little bit better and let you see a little bit more what's going on. Like here, you can kind of see the cup. You can see my gloves a little bit. You see some of the other stuff that I've been welding on. The light's reflecting off that. It's honestly pretty rewarding to watch this stuff. Or at least if it turns out decent, it's like, as far as like the shot goes, you kind of get to like enjoy the fruits of your labor, so to speak. Also, all clips of me welding, I sped them up pretty good because, when you're welding, there's a lot going on. You got a lot to keep track of and pay attention to. But a video of welding actually just feels so much slower than it does when you're actually doing it. And so if you're not actually paying attention to all that stuff and trying to make all that stuff happen, I feel like those videos do end up being a little bit of a drag. But if I speed it up, I feel it gets a little bit more interesting for the viewer to watch, especially a viewer who doesn't weld, which I would assume most people would end up being. This here's a finished product. I'm pretty happy with it. There's no porosity in it, by the way. That's just some silicone that I left on there because I was lazy. But yeah, honestly, I think it turned out pretty good. It didn't take me long. This whole thing probably took me like less than 2 hours to make. And I hope y'all enjoyed. All right, see y'all in the next one.